I've never been so concerned that I was going to be trampled than when I was in front of a bunch of fans trying to get to Smosh at VidCon. So the statistics of Smosh's reach and power are kind of crazy. And you guys are now, your partnership's now 10 years old. You've been working with first Defy, and now, I'm sorry, first, I guess you were acquired by Defy several years ago, and you've just been growing gangbusters. And the statistics, I just have to repeat a couple of these. 40 million followers across social media, 38 million subscribers for your 5 channels on YouTube, and 215 million monthly views. So the question is, how do 2 guys from Sacramento who like to make videos create this brand that is bigger than yourself and that is now sort of cross-platform? So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are. And Barry, I hope you'll jump in and explain the role you've played as well.
Yeah, I mean, it all started with just us doing it for fun. We started in 2005, and we were just like fresh out of high school, had no idea what we wanted to do with our lives, and we just decided to make some silly videos, and just happened to gain traction. There was no way to make money on YouTube when YouTube first got started. So
we won a free iPod Nano, though.
Yeah, we won a free iPod Nano.
Yeah,
and that helped us buy like our first camcorder, which we then used. It was just Anthony and I filming each other at the beginning. And you know, throughout the years, as revenues increased, we were able to add more crew, make higher production videos. So
yeah,
now
Barry actually met up with us and was like, you guys should change this from just, you know, you could expand this to do something more than just you guys. Let's build it out to be something even bigger.
Yeah, and it's something that we really, truly enjoyed. And we learned through Barry that in order to grow and keep this sustainable, we needed to make it something bigger than just 2 guys.
In 2006, January, there was this thing called YouTube that I was playing around with, and I saw this video that had like 9 million views on it. And it was these 2 kids from Sacramento lip syncing the lyrics to Pokemon. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get it, but I understood what, 9 million people watching something. I think it was the most viewed video on YouTube at the time, and said there's really something to this. These are 2 good-looking guys. They've got some talent.
Oh, thank you.
You know how I feel.
We paid him to say that.
And they clearly had made a connection with an audience, and so I called them up, and after some initial confusion about the call,
don't tell them.
I went up and we met, and they were, they were like
confusion because they couldn't believe that a company wanted to.
Confusion because I didn't know what he meant when he said he liked our voices.
I was looking for some unique voices.
I was like, he wants to do voice acting.
Right, I'd had a career in animation before, and so there was that.
Yeah.
So give us a sense of sort of what the Smosh Machine is now. I think it's really interesting to point out that you guys had a movie that was at first going to be distributed by Lionsgate, and then you decided to distribute yourselves. I'm curious to hear sort of how that all went down. And now you have a show which doesn't have either of you in it. So the Smosh brand has become bigger than you two. So first tell me a little bit about this idea of being YouTube content creators who make a movie, a traditional film.
Yeah, I mean, one of the goals that we had was to just expand Smosh in as many ways as possible. And a movie was something that we always wanted to do. And we finally got the opportunity to do it. And so we were just really excited to try a totally new platform. We look at like movies and TV not as like the next step, like, oh, the internet's like this little thing, like, a lot of people look at the internet as like a stepping off point to something bigger, but we kind of see those other forms as just a way to expand.
I think when we approached this initially, even in the very beginning, we felt like we could build Smosh into a massive comedy brand for teens and young adults. And in order to do that, we needed to go beyond YouTube while never leaving YouTube, because that was where the core audience was and will probably always be. But we also needed to depart slightly from the enterprise of just Anthony and Ian. And so it started with adding crew to the production of the Friday YouTube videos so they could get freed up to actually make more videos, to write more, and to direct more as opposed to just doing every single thing. And then, we needed the help of a larger company, and that's where Defy came in. And we really became very well-resourced in terms of how we produced those videos, but then it enabled us to launch additional channels on YouTube. And, we launched, I think that we always had the second channel, but Shut Up Cartoons was the first one we launched, and then Smosh Games, and then our Spanish language channel, El Smosh, came after that. And it also allowed us to really push out through social media. So, one of the things that was always really, really important for us was to be where the audience was. And so, whether they're on YouTube or Snapchat or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or Tumblr, we make sure that we have content there that feels fresh and original and allows the audience to have an experience. The step after that was, what do you do in the traditional space? And a movie was a logical thing. Longer form programming is a really logical thing, and YouTube has enabled us to do that as part of their most recent originals program. So we're in production now, or just wrap production on 20 episodes of a sitcom called Part-Timers, which has a full cast and a full television-like production that's going to appear on YouTube in the first week of January.
So Part-Timers is a big production, but interestingly, it's not going to be part of YouTube Red, the new subscription service. Why did you guys want to have it free, ad-supported, as opposed to putting it behind that firewall? The paywall, sorry, paywall.
I think that we want to reach as much of our audience as possible, which is why the movie was important for us to put it out digitally and allow our worldwide audience to see it. Putting behind a paywall restricts the amount of viewers. So for me personally, I would like our content to be viewable to as much of our audience as possible.
But I also think that it would have probably been YouTube's preference to put it behind the paywall and have it as part of YouTube Red, but they were so efficient and the show was so desirable for advertisers that they had actually completed a sponsorship deal with Schick, which required it to get lots more views than it would get behind a paywall. And so we were very fortunate because it would have gone behind the paywall.
Yeah, it would have gone on YouTube.
So,
Red. It was originally
so we're very
YouTube
happy
Red.
to have it reach our entire audience.
So Barry oversees 180 people. It's a huge team. And you make something like 40 weekly shows under your oversight. What have you guys seen as the value of being part of Defy as opposed to going it alone?
Well, one of the focuses was to take all the sort of background stuff off our plates so we could just focus on solely creative stuff. So.
And he got tickets to Hamilton Sunday night.
That was the biggest benefit,
perk?
really.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So you alluded to this when talking about the movie, the idea of having this direct relationship with your fans. Your social media following is huge, and you have this direct relation with fans not just on YouTube but elsewhere. It sounds like from the beginning you wanted to, while maintaining this relationship with fans on YouTube, not be reliant on YouTube. How do you use the other social media platforms, whether it's Snapchat or Facebook, to continue sharing video?
Yeah, we always knew that we couldn't put all of our eggs in one basket. From the beginning, actually Smosh.com started before we even started making videos on YouTube. So when we started making videos on YouTube, we started putting bonus content on our website, selling merch on our website. Now we utilize Snapchat, Vine, Facebook, and everything. It's really beneficial to have yourself out there everywhere that you can.
I think one of the things that we also realized was, I alluded earlier to the fact that you go where the audience is, and so, they go all over the place, but they also consume content differently on different platforms, and so it was really important for us to not just put posts on Facebook that said, go to the website and read this article. You really, we found first with Facebook and now with all social media platforms, we really have to tailor the sort of content that we put on those platforms to those contents specifically. So our YouTube videos don't necessarily go as a whole on Facebook. The content that we create for Vine and Snapchat is completely unique to those platforms. So, we're really engaged in figuring out what the platform is and then creating content specifically for that.
There's been a lot of talk recently about Facebook's growing video views and whether or not that poses a challenge to YouTube. How do you guys like your relationship with fans on Facebook versus YouTube?
I see it like Barry said, it's a different audience. I think Facebook has the possibility, depending on what your content is, to reach a totally different group of people. It's probably more possible if you do like social experiment type videos that your grandma wants to share, rather than our sketches. But but we still,
I'm sure
Facebook is still,
your grandma's
Facebook is still a huge traffic driver to our website.
One of the things that we found, we acquire a lot of viral video content as part of the Break brand at the company. And what we found was that some of those videos worked really well on the Smosh Facebook page. So, short, funny clips could be posted to the Smosh Facebook page and would do really well there. And so that's an example of content that is not necessarily core to Anthony and Ian, but does really well with our audience.
What's your perspective on traditional media? I mean, you talked about this a little bit, Ian, this idea that you're not just trying to get a TV show, you're just not, you're not trying to make a big movie for distribution. I think it's interesting that you had the successful direct-to-consumer release of your film, and I wonder if you feel like your audience, the millennials who are so obsessed, who we saw on the screen earlier, do you need traditional content, traditional distribution forms to meet them and to get your content to them?
We don't need it. It's a way to expand, really, and give them more opportunities, different ways, different types of content. Like when we made our movie, we kept with our online schedule without them even knowing, that we ever were working on it. We didn't take a month off or 2 months off. Our YouTube audience is so important to us. It's where we got started. It's where everyone is watching us. It's where we get most of the views. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't falter from our schedule that we're already creating. So it's really important to keep your audience online engaged at all times and not falter away from that.
I think we haven't missed a Friday release in what?
10 years?
7 years.
7 years, yeah. We've consistently put out content like
on our schedule.
Yeah.
We saw there was an internet talent bubble in like 2007, and we saw it. So every traditional media company was signing up YouTube talent, and the lure of going to television was so great to some of these people that they would just walk away from their YouTube channel thinking that, well, I'll make a television show and I'll come back in a couple months and it'll still be there. And a lot of these people came back and it wasn't there. The audience had gone away. And so we agreed that we would never do that. So no matter what it is that we're working on, whether it's another movie or a television show or a show for Verizon, we will always be, aggressively programming our YouTube channels.
But does that mean you also want them to do all that other stuff? Barry?
Yeah,
Do I?
Yeah.
I think that we find ways to make it work. So, when we shot the movie or when we shot Part-Timers for YouTube, we created a schedule not just for the traditional production, but also for our YouTube production that allowed both things to happen, not simultaneously, but dovetailing with one another. And another important component in this is that we've always tried to move the Smosh brand from two guys who make videos to a brand, to a verb or an adjective to describe a type of humor that appeals to young people. And part of that was, last year we brought on 5 new cast members. We already had 5 or 6 on the Smosh game side, but we have a bunch of on-camera people that are now Smosh, and people think, you're Noah from Smosh, or you're Keith from Smosh, or you're Olivia from Smosh. And so the audience really views it that way. And we've proved that concept by having videos that go up. We have a show called Every Blank Ever, which oftentimes doesn't have Anthony or Ian in it, and it's one of the best performing shows on the Smosh channel.
Is that what the future of Smosh is, continuing to build more and more that's not as reliant on your two faces?
Yeah, we want the brand to be, when you think of Smosh, you think of a type of humor and not just our faces.
And describe what is Smosh?
As far as the brand of humor,
Especially
we have trouble describing that, but we always say, like, we don't know how exactly to explain it, but we know it when we see it. Like, that's Smosh and that's not Smosh. It's weird, but we know what
so
it is.
Barry, when you say you want Smosh to be an adjective or a verb, what is the verb, the Smosh verb? What is it?
I think that it means a lot of things, but I think one of the things that it means for content is that it's humor content that appeals to a young audience that is not necessarily sophisticated or advanced in its production. Because coming out of the YouTube space, one of the things that we found was that if we got too slick and if our productions looked too professional, the audience would call us out on it. Because Anthony and Ian, to a 13-year-old kid in Iowa, represent possibilities. And so when they watch these guys, they say, I could almost do that. I want to be able to do that, and they're speaking directly to me.
We're seeing brands like Vice, which start off as truly digital brands, now launch a TV channel. Is that something that you guys would ever want to do?
We'd be open to it, but we almost have 24 hours of content every day as it is. We have at least one video a day going out, maybe two, across all of our channels.
Do you think your fans even watch linear traditional television?
No, they don't. Really.
We were talking about it. We were talking about how neither Anthony nor myself or most of our friends even have cable subscriptions anymore. So it's a really interesting shift because we're like, well, I mean, if we want to watch a quality show, we'll just, HBO Go, Hulu, Netflix.
Don't tell Les Moonves, he was just on stage.
Everyone wants to be able to get their stuff on. Everyone wants to be able to get their stuff on demand, and that's why YouTube became popular initially. Is people were like, oh, I could send this to all my friends; they could watch it whenever they want. It's not like I gotta wait and tune in at a certain time.
And plus, there's only so much content that you truly want to watch on TV. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you don't care about, but you're gonna get it anyway because it's a cable subscription.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it would be fantastic to have, Smosh as a linear TV channel, and it was viewed the same way that somebody views, Cartoon Network or Comedy Central, where they know what type of content that they're going to get there. And so if there were a linear channel that were branded Smosh, of course we wouldn't produce 100% of the content that went on there. We would produce some of it, but then we would go out and acquire content that is similar in tone or feeling that makes sense. I mean, for me, it would be a fantastic thing one day to turn on the television and to see a show that was, a Smosh production that maybe had nothing to do with what we do on YouTube and maybe didn't have you guys in it.
But it's something that we know that our audience would.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Barry, gives a sense, though, of how Smosh fits into Defy and your bigger sort of strategy and your bigger vision for building these digital content brands.
It's funny, each one is really different, and it's age and gender of the audiences, and so Smosh relies very heavily on social media and very heavily on YouTube, but a brand like Made Man, which is an older, more sophisticated adult male, exists more as a website and exists more as a brand on different social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, but it's not on Snapchat and Vine. So, of all the brands we manage, this is probably the one that appeals to the youngest audience, but each one has to be treated differently. So the same way that, we look at the social media landscape and the media landscape and program Smosh where it's appropriate, all of those get programmed and resourced appropriately.
How important is social media for you guys? How do you see that in terms of a tool for your content?
It's very important to just interact with your audience. You get a chance to learn what your audience wants. If we ever have a question, we just go on Twitter and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or what's your opinion on this? And we use that to learn how to change our videos or improve our videos.
Is Twitter the platform of choice, or is it?
It's all of them, really. We could go on Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram.
As far as interacting with the fans directly, I usually do Twitter.
It's
just
most direct.
It's more direct, yeah. It's kind of hard to go into the comments of Instagram and
Yeah, but if you want to shout out something, you would use Snapchat. Be like, hey, we just released this movie or whatever, and then that's a good way to get your word out really quickly.
What's the next thing for you guys?
I mean,
we have a lot of things in the works. We have part-timers. We have a few comic books.
You have an album? You have an album coming out?
Album coming out, yeah.
How many albums is it?
6th album. Yeah, we release an album almost every year.
Did you know they sing and rap? And
sing
rap.
and rap.
Lots of auto-tune.
Dance.
Yeah.
I think we've released an album almost every year. We do about 15 or 16 videos that have original music in them. And so, 7 or 8 years ago, one of us came up with the idea to put it all together and put an album out. So we have an album coming out. We have video games in the works. We have, what am I missing? Part-timers, which is huge, which we're going to go out in support of at the end of this month and the beginning of next month.
What's the biggest surprise in it, and Anthony, the biggest surprise in terms of working with Defy? Obviously you guys have been working together for many years, but when you started off, you were just 2 guys. Did you expect to have this team of people looking at data, and what's the biggest surprise benefit?
I think all the help with launching new channels. We were able to launch Smosh Games. We have 6 people on there that are full-time talent on screen, making 1 or 2 videos every single day on that channel. And I think it's just been that ability for us to create more and more stuff without our faces in every single thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and they have like a full ad sales team, so we're not personally dealing with every like offer that comes in, which
anymore.
We used to do, and it was ridiculous. Yeah. So, yeah.
As Smosh becomes much bigger than YouTube, what's the biggest risk to the brand?
I think some people may have only started watching us for just us and are uncomfortable with the idea of seeing new faces, but we've seen before when we introduce a new face, some people might not be hot to that idea, but then they eventually grow warm to it after a while, and that person becomes part of the Smosh family, we call it. Yeah. But I don't think there's too much risk, really.
I think it's getting stale. I think that you don't want to get stale. You always want to have new ideas. You always want to, be pushing the envelope creatively, and I think you always want to be teachable as well. And part of the evolution of the brand is the evolution of the guys. And so, when I met them, they were 17 or 18 years old, and they knew what they didn't know, and were willing to soak up new information like sponges and apply it to their craft. And so, as long as they're growing, we continue to try to facilitate that growth, whether it's, production resources or better ad sales or, social media intelligence that tells them, where they should be and how much they should be doing there. So I think it's to keep growing and to, be creatively fresh.
It sounds like for the past decade, there's been the sense of wanting to spread out your risk, not wanting to be too reliant on YouTube, and now not wanting to be too reliant just on the 2 of you as the characters leading this. As the business brain behind this, Barry, what's your sense of sort of the diversification here? There are so many YouTube brands that are just about that person, and it's just about that person's face. It's Bethany Moda. It's like that one face. Is this a diversified YouTube personality strategy?
It absolutely is, and it's probably one of the most challenging things that we have to do, because every time somebody new shows up, the audience, to some extent, freaks out. And I think I remember the first time we ever really did it. We have a young lady who works for us on the Smosh Games channel, and we decided before there was a Smosh Games that we were going to put her on our 2nd channel, and she was going to do a show by herself called Smosh Pit Weekly, which was designed to showcase the content on our website. And she made her first episode, and it was pretty good. And the comments were so hateful, and they were racist. She's Asian. They were sexist. She's a girl, and she was soundly rejected. But part of what we learned over time was that just don't read the comments when they're that bad, and wait it out, because she was in tears.
Yeah. And she said that she read, like, whenever she would go to the comment section for the first year, she would cry. Yeah. Because it's just, that's the internet. But what we found out is that over time, people warmed up to her, got to actually know her personality, and that's what it's all about. Like,
and we made like 300 episodes of that show, and she's one of the biggest stars on Smosh Games, and probably, you know, other than Anthony and Ian, the most, you know, she's the person
people love her.
that the audience gets the most excited about seeing at somewhere like VidCon.
So yeah, diversifying is really important. You know, we don't want to be everything reliant on just us.
Diversify and don't read the comments.
That's right. That's what we learned today.
Never read.
Yeah. Very